in developing a character, you see the complexities of your character. And that's one of the things that we as adult Chautauquans learn as we're creating our portrayal, but that's such a value for young people to understand too. You know, Abraham Lincoln was a flawed man, and they can't necessarily convey that in a school lesson, but a Chautauquan can convey it, and a young person who's doing a portrayal of Abraham Lincoln is bound to make those kinds of discoveries.
I got very interested in the Civil War. I came down to Georgia. I fell in love with the whole idea of the Battle of Atlanta. I romanticized William Tecumseh Sherman. You know, he hated journalists and this and that and scorched earth. And I read his autobiography and Ulysses S. Grant and said, these men were failures at everything they did in life, and boy, they tried a lot. The only thing that they were good at was total warfare. I have a lot of plays out there, but I write them so that children, young people understand that we understand the complexity of decisions. It's not just say no to drugs, say no to this, that, and the other. Oh, you know, you should never have a dark thought because you're a young person. You should always be up happy. And when we disperse those illusions and we say even the quote unquote greatest people in history cried themselves to sleep, had moments of regret, didn't know which way to go, made mistakes, almost didn't see it through or didn't see it through places in their life, I think that inspires a great deal of hope. I want the students to know that I'm a human. That opens dialogue. I'm in enough of a position of authority just because of our societal structure. But we're, Deborah, we're artists, we're educators, and we want to be, best advice I ever got was go where they are and bring them back with you.
You know, when you were talking, Deborah, about Lincoln, we had at one of our Chautauqua, lecture series events, a gentleman from Rutgers, a professor who's written a number of books on Lincoln. And, at the end of his, sweep of revealing the flawed and the brilliant about him, he said, the thing that I love most of all about President Lincoln was that he could change his mind.
Yes, he evolved. We need to understand that's part of what we do as humans. We get smarter, we learn. When you know better, you do better.
In technical terms, that's the arc. That's the arc of the character. And if the character doesn't have an arc, everybody has an arc. When we're talking about historical, stage-worthy, Chautauqua-worthy characters, we're missing it. So we have to find it. It took me a really long time to find the right starting place for Che. And once I found that moment, that decision moment and his life was a series of decision moments. And so I approach all characters now from the point, what are the key decision moments? His decision to become a doctor when he was a terrible student was because his abuela, his grandmother, died of asthma. Now he had asthma, severe to the point where he would be bedridden. And he was so tough and wanted to overcome it. He would play soccer and do all these things that were dangerous to his health. But when his abuela died, he said, I have to become a doctor. And then when he went out on his famous motorcycle tour with his friend Albert and saw the mining conditions and the conditions of the peasants and the thumb of the government and the thumb of foreign governments in America and the United Fruit Company, he said, there are other kinds of disease. There is social disease, there's political disease, and I can't fight this as a doctor. And that's why he adopted, and when he adopted socialism. And then it locked in during a battle in Cuba where he had to choose between a box of bullets and a box of bandages. And he chose the bullets. So I think unfolding decision moments, especially for middle school, high school kids, it's all about decision moments. We've been locked away for 14 months that have profoundly changed history. politics, social, everything that we deal with, economics, right? The intelligence community just came out with a report, and they said the world is going to be in turmoil, new kinds of turmoil for decades because of what has happened in economic collapse and all this kind of stuff. You have these great divides. You have the alt-right and Black Lives Matter. You have all these different layers, and some people are being forced to retire their characters. And I don't know about that. I don't know about that, because our job is to show who they were at that time in the evolution of the world. So it becomes good news, bad news. And that's another part of Chautauqua that I'm very interested and keen on. Where have we gone? How far have we come? Let's celebrate that. But then we have to pause and go, why does this sound so familiar to us? Why is this creeping up? Why haven't we learned these lessons? And how can we watch these people's mistakes? That, to me, is the primary value of Chautauqua right now, where we're at.
One of my characters is Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind. And that novel and movie are under attack for a lot of very good reasons. But people also don't realize that Margaret Mitchell funded scholarships for African American medical students, and that money still sustains those scholarships. She also created a special emergency room at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta to serve the African American people when they were not welcome at the regular hospital. So I like to be able to show that there's more to this story than what people immediately understand.
I read lots and lots of things that I disagree with. You know, I'll watch QAnon videos and break them down into a 3-act play and go, oh, or it's like a magic trick, right? The Prestige, the 3 parts. And you can track how they do this. We'll start in history, we'll stretch history, we'll get into the incredulous, but now I've got you wound up. Now I'm going to make an ask of you in your vulnerable place. So we need to learn these things. I just reviewed a great book. I highly recommend it. It's called Hannah's War by Jane Eliasberg. Jane's a Yale drama graduate, Woodrow Wilson MFA program in writing, directed all my favorite TV shows over the years. But it's based on Lee Meitner, the director, the physicist who actually invented nuclear fission with her partner, who got the new Nobel Prize, and she did it. So anyway, Hannah is a fictitious version of her. But at the end of the day, it brings up a lot of interesting things. You were talking about Churchill. America seems to own the moral high ground of World War II, right? We have such clear villains, and we were the heroes, and Rosie the Riveter and all. Ships, at least one ship full of Jews, came to America and was turned away and was sent back to Germany. And it's kind of an unpopular opinion, though it's gaining, but Japan was on its knees. The dropping of the atomic bomb was to send a message to Russia. It had nothing to do with Japan. Japan was ready to. So works like that, works that we do, are so important to go, let's not adopt a moral high ground position, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And that's okay, because that's dialogue.